Going live. Hey, we're back. So we already did the Ulysses this whole summer. So that was like started in July and took me 2 months to get through all the chapters. So The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. It's about the same page count as Ulysses. It's probably just as long as Ulysses. How long is Ulysses anyway? Yeah. Well, yeah, it's maybe a little bit longer than Ulysses, but uh, there's only 7 chapters, so we'll do 7 videos, maybe one follow up. We'll see how we get into it. So let me read a little bit of the beginning. The first 4 or 5 chapters are 200 pages, and the last 3 chapters are around 500 pages. Let me just talk about a little introduction here. So this book's a little bit different. It was published around the same time as Ulysses, maybe 2 years later. He started writing it in 1912. It was supposed to be like a story like Death in Venice, but World War One happened, so it ended up being a little longer, and it's widely considered the most influential works of the 20th century German literature. So I read it a few years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, but I read it twice, once and then 6 months later. And I kind of I still have Buddenbrooks up here. I've had the same copy for a long time. I got to read that sometime too. So, so this is my 3rd time reading it here. So here we go. Let's see what we're going to get. Okay, so we're there. Okay, so an ordinary, this is the, I don't know what, the John E. Woods, he did a lot of the Arno Schmidt translations, so he's pretty well known in the German language. So I don't know if this is the one I read before, but it was a new one that I think had come out about 20 years ago. So I don't know which. I'll have to look it up later. An ordinary young man on his way from his hometown of Hamburg to Davisplatz in the canton of Graubünden. It was the height of summer, and he planned to stay for 3 weeks. It was a long trip. Is this the beginning? I thought. Oh yeah. I didn't. There's a foreword here. The story of Hans Castorp that we intend to tell here, not for his sake, for the reader will come to know him perfectly ordinary, if an engaging young man, but for the sake of the story itself, which seems to us to be very much worth telling. Although in Hans Castorp's favor, it should be noted that this is his story, and not every story happens to everybody. It is a story that took a long place ago, and is, so to speak, covered with the patina of history, and must necessarily be told with verbs whose tense is that of the deepest past. Nor is that to be detrimental to our story. Indeed, it may well work to its advantage for stories, as histories must be passed, and the further past, one might say, for the better for them as stories, and for the storyteller that conjurer who murmurs in past tenses. But the problem with our story, as also with many people nowadays, and indeed not the least with those who tell stories, is this: it is much older than its years. Its datedness is not to be measured in days, nor the burden of the age weighing upon it to be counted by orbits around the sun. In a word, it does not actually owe its pastness to time, an assertion that is itself intended as a passing reference, an allusion to the problematic and uniquely double nature of the mysterious present. Okay, so there's a little bit of a forward. Okay, so listen, we're getting back to chapter 1 here. An ordinary young man was on his way to his hometown of Hamburg to Davisplatz in the canton of Graubünden. It was the height of summer, and he planned to stay there for 3 weeks. It is a long trip, however, from Hamburg to those elevations. Too long, really, for so short a visit. The journey leads itself through many a landscape, uphill and down, descends from the high plains of the southern Germany to the shores of the Swabia Sea, and proceeds by boat across the skipping waves, passing over abysses once thought unfathomable. From there, the path, which until now has followed grand, direct routes, turns choppy. There are stopovers and formalities. At Rorschach, a town in the Swiss territory, you reboard a train that takes you only as far as Landquart, a small station in the Alps, where you must change trains again after standing for a while in the wind, gazing at rather an charming landscape. You climb aboard a narrow gauge train, and the moment the small but uncommonly sturdy engine pulls out, the real adventure begins, a steep and dogged ascent that will never end, it seems. The station at Landquart lies at a relatively low altitude, but now your road takes you on a wild ride up into the real mountains along the tracks that squeeze their way between walls of rock. Hans Castorp, that is the young man's first name, found himself alone in a small compartment, upholstered in gray. With him, he had an alligator valise, a present from his uncle and foster father, Council Tien Nepple. Since we are naming names here, a rolled up plaid blanket and a winter coat swinging on its hook. The window was open beside him, but the afternoon was turning cooler and cooler, and being the cold scion of the family, he turned up the silk line collar of his fashionable loose summer overcoat. On the seat lay beside him a paperback book entitled Ocean Steamships, which he had perused from time to time earlier on his trip, but which now lay neglected, the cover dirtied by soot drifting in with the steam of the heavily puffing locomotive. So, so it's very terse. You don't know what's going to happen. He's going to the sanatorium. Let's see. Let me go back to the thing. Okay, so let's see. This newer work reflected his experience and impressions during a period when his wife, who was suffering from respiratory disease, resided at Dr. Friedrich Jensen's uh, Wald Sanatorium in Davos, Switzerland, for several months. In May and June of 1912, Mann visited her and became acquainted with a team of doctors and patients in Cosmopolitan Institution. In this Cosmopolitan Institute, according to Mann in his afterword that was later included in the English translation of the novel, this day inspired the opening chapter, Arrival. The outbreak of World War I interrupted the work in the book. So it was going to be a short book. And it was inspired by this. And let's see. Okay, so chapter one. Let's talk about what happened in chapter one. The first two sentences of the novel forward deserve special attention, for they contain the hero's characterization as simple-minded. As the story progresses, we become increasingly aware that Hans Castorp is by no means simple-minded young man. No means a simple-minded young man in the derogatory sense of the term. Mann merely mentions Castorp's simplicity to emphasize his faculty of meeting the countless influences to which he is exposed to resist the many temptations to commit himself permanently to any view or cause. This is, of course, a major theme of the novel, the lengthy, cumbersome, and perilous road of Hans Castorp's self-education. The opening sentences also contain the novel's other major theme, the complexity and mystery of time. Throughout this book are countless recurring variations on the theme of time. As a newcomer, Hans Castorp is exposed, first of all, to the thin air of Berghof and the bizarre silhouettes of dense forests and snow-capped peaks surrounding it. Man uses nature here to evoke new, unfamiliar feelings in Hans, feelings of vagueness and timelessness. which he will intensify later on as he ventures higher into the regions of eternal snow and ice. So, like, so Thomas Mann, let's go back to Thomas Mann. He was born in 1975, so or he's older than James Joyce. And so that means he wrote this book when, um, do the math, late 30s, early 40s. So he's born in 1875. Um, where's his books at? Okay. Uh, okay, so let's go to what? Oh, okay. Yeah, here's the novels. Okay, but so Buddenbrook, so that's his Buddenbrooks is his earliest novel, even though he has like other, yeah, but it's pretty early. There's not there's some short stories he published, but as far as his novels, most people read his novels. Okay, Buddenbrook's the first one. That's like, that's probably his, portrait of the artist, kind of like the equivalent, or and part Dubliners, maybe two in one. Okay, and then Royal Highness is a book I've never heard of, so maybe it's not so good. So we don't know. And then so Magic Mountain is his third novel, 1924. So this is pretty good. And then Latte in Weimar, and then let's go back. Okay, so Death in Venice, it came out. It's already out like 1912. So that's so Antonio Kroger's before. So there's some collection with Death in Venice, Antonio Kroger, and some of the stories. The three transposed heads, as I'm familiar with that too. That's later. He might have written that when he was in America. Okay, so after Magic Mountain, he writes Latte in Weimar. That's in 39. Dr. Faustus is after World War II. I don't know if I read that. The Holy Sinner, never heard of that. And the Confessions of Felix Paul is his last. It's an unfinished novel. So he died. He dies in 55. So he lived 80 years. So he did. So he's almost 50 when this book's published. So it's about a younger guy. So when you're younger, when you're older and you're writing about, oh, yeah, Michael Mann. Michael Mann's is a Johnson. No, I'm not hip to the Chili Gonzalez oeuvre. I know he has something to do with Feist and Peaches and stuff, but well, we were just talking about Jarvis Cocker in the last one. He didn't Chili Gonzalez do something with Jarvis Cocker? So so which Bowie? Yeah, those Bowie records are pretty bad. I don't know. What thoughts. No, I'm kind of in Miles Davis, the Black Magus record. I'm kind of interested in hearing that. I think that's like supposed to be a good one. And the later Bowie, even Let's Dance Bowie is kind of hard to listen to. And then some of the stuff he did in the 90s, like Outside and Heathen, I think I listened to them when they came out, but I have some of his, the Black Star and the next year or whatever it's called. I have those, but I don't listen to. I kind of consider Bowie like the first 10 or 12 records. Yeah, the next day. What do I call it? The next year. Yeah, I don't know how many records he did, but the stuff in the 80s and 90s, I'm not so much into. The last couple records were way more interesting. I don't really need to hear a drum and bass David Bowie record or whatever he's doing. So let me finish this off. I don't want to be too long, but I guess since this is only going to be 7 parts, I gotta. So let's see. Besides using nature to introduce the newcomer to the sanatorium. Thomas Mann, he's a German. Michael Mann, I don't know. I think he's an American. Man also uses. He has a Castorp has a cousin, Joachim Zeisen. How do you spell Zeisen? Maybe it's three syllables in there. Unknowingly, Joachim has taken on some of the characteristics of the mode of life of the Berghoff, and one thing in particular which confuses Hans is Joachim is the latter's concept of time. It strikes at Hans that Joachim's sense of time is very haphazard. In fact, their conversation soon dwells upon the nature of time, so treasured in the world below and so meaningless up here in the mountains, where there's little demand of its observance, except in the routine of taking one's temperature. These reflections on time now focus on the static quality of duration. Man will be concerned with the linear and circular aspects of time in the course of Castorp's growing self-awareness. Hence, Castorp is both appalled and intrigued by Joachim's use of the collective we and his reference to life at the sanatorium as life up here. Man's objective is having Joachim express the sharp differentiation between the world above and that below is twofold. On a philosophical level, it underlies the deep gap between the artistic, intellectual realm and the normal realm of average people. Or, the realm of early Bowie to the realm of Bowie in the 90s. Yeah. So, let's see. Here we have the author's early romantic concept of the dichotomy between art on one hand and life on the other. On the political level, the sharp differentiation of above and below points to the fact that the Berghoff is a sanctuary of disease and death. It stands for as a symbol of the sick, chauvinistic European society before World War One. Its isolation from the normal world is symptomatic of the advanced stage of the disease. It'd be kind of strange if we had like some kind of COVID like plague hitting the world, and the very rich went up to like the mountains and stuff, and that's like this is written like around the time of World War One and stuff. So like these people seem to be kind of uninvolved with world events. The Hans Castorp. That would be kind of interesting. That's why Magic Mountain is still kind of relevant. It's kind of like this. Like this us and them. There seems to be like a formation of elites or kind of like happening, and like we kind of it'd be kind of interesting. Like I think in the beginning of COVID, people were kind of like. People were thinking of where should I go? Should I go to some? A lot of people in California wanted to go to Hawaii because they thought that'd be a good place to, kind of camp out for like a year. But Hawaii, COVID was, a lot of people had that same idea, so everyone kind of flew over there, and gave everybody in Hawaii COVID. Let's see, so where are we at? Let's see, in terms of technique, the continued use of up here as opposed to down there is interesting as man's basic irony, which the reader should bear in mind regardless of how involved the political philosophical battles will become as the story moves on. Irony is, of course, based on the insight that something is not necessarily and exclusively so, and that sometimes or at the same time it is very different. In other words, up here where the idle, sick, and decadent predominate, hence Castorp, though sick himself, will be physically cured and morally uplifted in the end. Down there, where normal people are supposedly healthy, carefree, and so thoroughly bourgeois, disease and war abound. So it's either you're up there in the mountains with the people kind of recovering from getting some of that mountain area down there in the dirty world. Okay, Joachim, Hans' cousin, speaks in terms of up here and down below in matters of disease and death. He's acquired a nonchalance, which is typical of the whole atmosphere. Here, man lashes out at the decadence of society, which, while taking death for granted, nevertheless does everything in its power to conceal it as shocking or thought provoking. To man, life and death are two aspects of a perennial recurring process, a process which will figure prominently later during the discussion between Sepertini and Naphtha. Dr. Krokowski is the first major figure of the mountain world whom Hans meets. He is characterized as a perfect personification of the Berghoff, where the sympathy of those in charge is not with life but with disease and death. He is so morally deteriorated that he does not even believe that a person can be completely healthy. He laughs at Hans, who insists he came to pay a 3-week visit and not for treatment. Krokowski stands as the possible apostle of doom in a world where physical, mental, and moral decay go hand in hand. As are many other scenes, the dialogue between Castorp and Dr. Krokowski is autobiographical in origin. During this 3 weeks visit to a sanatorium, Thomas Mann actually contracted a serious cough and was advised by the assistant of the institution to join his wife in her rest cure. Certainly sensitive and possibly even susceptible to the lures of life. At a tuberculosis sanatorium, he declined. I preferred to compose Magic Mountain instead, he declared, he had had I agreed to stay up there, I may still be up there now. It is not by accident that the political dimension of this novel, which would assume a central position in Hans Castorp educational process, is introduced through a Austrian aristocrat. The Austro-Hungarian monarchy is that right? Was Austria and Hungary together at that time? Is regarded as a chief bulwark against the democracy by Sepertini, perhaps Castorp's most influential mentor. The aristocrat's deep-seated cough, indicative of advanced stage of his disease, irritates Hans considerably. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I remember when COVID was happening, and because I just went to Noise Pop, and I was kind of, and then it was shortened because I was like, I knew COVID was kind of coming on, and what the hell was I doing at this fest? And then me and my friend Leanne went to this thing at the Natural History Museum, and it was like, why the hell are we here? And then I saw Thundercat and then the next day everything was closed down. Okay, so let's see. The war at the end will irritate him even more because he will be forced to take up arms. Ironically, he will be killed in a war which was caused to a substantial degree by reactionary forces of the once glorious and now quickly deteriorating Habsburg Empire, of which their aristocrat is a symbol. Throughout this chapter, Mann already employs the technique of a leitmotif, a short musical phrase representing and recurring with a given character, situation, or emotion. He uses it to point to similarities and changes in the conduct of the characters, or to tie together the elements of dreams and visions with which others experience in real life. Joachim, for instance, keeps shrugging his shoulders in the manner he never used to know, in the manner he never used to in the world below, and Castorp unpacks the same brand of cigars that he used to enjoy at his great uncle's, and that he will still smoke when the sanatorium will have taken to plane 17 and 4 in chapter 7. The face cream Hans applies on his sunburnt cheeks reappears in his first dream at the Berghoff or Berghoff. The image of Joachim also appears in Hans' dream. Joachim's face is translucently pale as that of Dr. Krokowski. In Hans Castorp's dream, Joachim and the Austrian aristocrat ride down the mountainside together on a bobsled. In this fashion, the other sanatorium carries its dead down the mountain. Thus, by means of leitmotif, we get a forewarning of Joachim's death in the future. It is easy to spin the theme of their joint ride down the mountain a little further, charging it with political implications. They head towards death together. Joachim, the German soldier, willing to live and die for a cause, and the Austrian aristocrat, symbol of the crumbling monarchy. Yet we should always bear in mind that Joachim is not decadent and man never condemns him. He is merely less complex than Castorp, and when the latter or Claudia Schaukat teases him about his bourgeois values, they do so with a considerable amount of envy. Uh, Joachim is, in fact, this is the only character in the entire novel who does not tempt our hero, and he is the only one who is not tempted by various educators. Here, as throughout the story, dreams and visions yield strange fused images by drawing on Castorp's past experience and presenting them in new contexts. Okay, so that's chapter one. That's chapter one. You know, so if you're reading it along with me, you should. It's at the beginning, and then oh well, yeah. Chapter one's very short. So let's see. Yeah, no, it's really short. Yeah, okay, so in there was the forward, and then chapter one starts on page 3, and then chapter 2 is on page 12 here. So let me get. Can I have another bookmark here? Okay, here we go. My ticket to Sophie Ellis Bextor here. I'm aiming for one chapter per week or so, or I don't know. I got another thing in there. I got to renew that book too. Okay, so how are we doing on time? Okay, so 27 minutes. Okay, so yeah, well, speaking of classical music, I mean, Thomas Mann did, I mean, Death in Venice is definitely about a classical composer. You know, that's true. Favorite Mozart? I'm not much of a Mozart guy. I'm more the other two, Bach, Beethoven. But I did. If you look at my record collection, you can see that I have a lot of Eric Satie. What else? Let me look. Okay, so we're talking about classical music. It's kind of important because like Mann did classical music, but let's go to my record collection and let's see. Yeah, here we go. Oh, okay. Let's see what we got. What comes up? Okay. So I have a lot of Alexander Scriabin. I'm more of a 20th century guy. I'm not like the Bach, Beethoven, Mozart. Bach, Beethoven, Mozart's kind of like old school. So I like so I got a lot of Alexander Scriabin. I got a lot of Satie. I have a lot of music soundtracks. What else? Edith Piaf, more Satie. Let's see. George Snell conducts Wagner. Sorry. Glenn Gould plays Bach. Okay, so that's like some old school stuff there. Okay, so I like. Okay, so I do have. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I have I'll pull this out like next time, but I do have the Gustav Mahler Death in Venice. So yeah, the Death in Venice. Like, thank you, Dr. Sexy, but yeah, but in terms of Thomas Mann, you know, Gustav Mahler is kind of like the guy, you know, like he's more of a 20th century guy. I mean, like Mozart is kind of like that's like saying, you know, what do you like, Beatles or Stones or Beach Boys or Dylan? And you go, well, I'm more into Britpop, you know. It's like that's. Oh, I do have 5 Bee Gees records. Is that something wrong with that? Okay, so and then I just wanted to mention. Okay, so I have Hector Berlioz Symphony Fantastique. That's a pretty common record that people had. A lot of Igor Stravinsky, big Stravinsky fan. Let's see what else. So a lot of the 20th century Brahms, which is I could listen to that one. Penderecki, he's a little bit more experimental. El Subramanian, so he's like I got some Indian guy plays Indian guitar or whatever it is. Meredith Monk. Um, let's see what else. I have a lot of Philip Glass. And that's not classical though. Okay, what's this? And then I have some weird. Oh, that's my James Joyce record. Okay, so yeah, I'll make sure I pull out that. I think that's pretty much it. And then I have like the Stanley Kubrick Clockwork Orange. So the Wendy Carlos does a lot of Bach and Beethoven in that. I have switched on Bach. I have a lot of Bach. So yeah, I like Mozart, but a lot of Mozart is that's like something for play the kids and stuff to get them hip. Got any Weber? Webern or who are you talking about? Okay, yeah, yeah. What do I have in the Bee Gees? I have like the early. You're talking early Bee Gees. I don't really. I have 2 years on. Bee Gees first, Best of the Bee Gees, Odessa, and Rare, Precious, and Beautiful. So yeah, and I have Saturday Night Fever soundtrack too. But yeah, this should probably have some more of the '70s stuff, huh? Yeah, I kind of like the early Bee Gees the most. Yeah, what Weber? Let's see, Weber. I mean, yeah, you stumped me, Weber. Oh, Carl Maria von. Okay, well, yeah, yeah, totally. Is he any good? I'm familiar with Webern, Anton Webern. I'm more of a 20th century guy. So, and what I mean, and Thomas Mann. I mean, he wrote Death of Venice about Gustav Mahler. It was kind of like more, and like, yeah, it's kind of weird that you think like, oh yeah, Joyce and Thomas Mann and all these T.S. Eliot, they were hip guys, but they all like opera and classical music. Yeah, Mozart's super talented, but and Bach. I mean, a lot of music kind of rests on Bach, but I like the sort of the. I just like the attitude of the early 20th century guys because I think they were sort of more kind of collage guys or something. They were kind of. I mean, Wagner was like the last really big. Or unless you who's that other guy that always like slips my mind, the guy that did all the symphonies but I can consider like Wagner like the last big kind of guy that did operas and did the old school Mozart Beethoven type thing, and then the guys in the 20th century were kind of deconstructed. Yeah, maybe nah. Yeah, I tend to like symphony orchestras more. I like rather than operas. Operas are, I like some of the Mozart without the singing and stuff. I like the melodies. Because like I mean, opera. The problem with the opera is they got these real conventional storylines and stuff, and so I like some of the some of the, yeah, I don't. I'm not an opera guy, so that's why I have a problem with Mozart. But yeah, everything else, the symphonies are pretty good. Let's look. Let's take a look at Mozart and like try to recommend some stuff. Let's see, Mozart. Wolfgang. He only lived like 35 years, so he didn't really do that much stuff. So it's not. He's like the Sid Vicious of classical music. Okay, so let's see. Okay, where do we got? What do we got here? Okay, what happened here? Yeah, he wrote a lot of symphonies. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at some of the, okay, quite enough a lot of masses, great mass in C minor. I think there's a couple masses in C. Okay, so he wrote litanies, vespers, church music, requiems. He had a lot of unfinished work. So he has a lot of. Okay, so I mean, what you see in Mozart, what you see in Amadeus is mostly like his operas and stuff. That's what I mean. He did ballet music, arias. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff. Okay, so symphonies. Oh, okay, so he wrote 41 symphonies, so that's pretty good. And a lot of piano. How many? 27 piano concertos. Okay, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, Mozart. I mean, if you look at the movie Amadeus, I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, the guy did a lot of masses. He did a lot of symphonies. He did a lot of concertos. But like in the movie, it just kind of focuses on his operas. Like that's where he was making most of his bread, which wasn't true. Concertos 25. Okay, yeah, yeah. I think that's probably. I mean, I haven't really thought about Mozart in a while, so it's like time to revisit. Yeah, Zappa's like the only guy that's like Stravinsky or John Cage, or he's like even trying to do like that kind of music or something like those guys are like kind of long gone. So this has become yeah. Yeah, I should just like, well, I should read. What I should do is like read a book, like a Mozart book, and kind of combine it with music and stuff. So yeah, I mean, like that's, I mean, I don't know. I read, yeah. What did I read? But like again, I probably just read like 20th century guys. So well, like yeah, just reading. I mean, there's a lot. There's probably like a lot of these guys, like like Bob Dylan. I mean, there's a million books about Mozart and stuff. So it's like, I like, I'll read like those things. But I mean, you have to listen to the music. I mean, the music's like the first thing that you have to like check out and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, he's like one of the guys that that's really good at melody. Joe Boyd. Is Joe Boyd still alive? Is Joe Boyd still alive? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. What's that? Let me take a look here. Okay, let's look on Amazon. Joe Boyd. Yeah, the roots of rhythm remain. Let's see this. Is that the same Joe Boyd, or is that a different Joe? That's kind of like a common name? Yeah, I think I heard of this book. Okay, so here, let me save that. Yeah, let me get a copy here. Let's see. When I go on Amazon, it recommends it recommends I read Comic Scholar about Harry Smith. I already read that book. And Never a Dull Moment by David Hess, where I read that already. So what's this? Okay, that's live. What's this? White. Let's see. Oh yeah, White Bicycles. What about that book? That looks good. Who's this Joe Boyd guy? Oh yeah, no, that's the same guy I'm thinking of. Is he still alive? Yeah, I could get. Yeah, okay. Well, okay. So I got all my problems are solved. Thomas Mann, get out of the way. Joe, we're just gonna focus on Joe Boyd and Mozart for like. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of these guys in the magazine world have got like their podcasts and stuff. Yeah. Oh really? Yeah, yeah. I'll check that out. Okay. Well, Thomas Mann, that I'm gonna end it here. This is like the end of my first chapters. There's gonna be 7 chapters of Thomas Mann, The Magic Mountain. One of the best books of the 20th century, people. Let's I'll end it there. I gotta watch. I'm off to my Joe Boyd. Got to do a little update here. Like gotta get educated here with on Joe Boyd. Okay, take care, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.